Ihi eva taijitah sargah yesham samye sthitam manah nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmat brahmani te sthita. This particular verse has got a direct understanding that we can draw for the complexity-ridden mind of today. In our own professional life, this particular verse brings a luminosity that can certainly make a way for us to enhance our potentials. To understand it deeper, let me draw the first line into two parts from here. As the line says, Eva a taijitah sarga. One who is one who or that has one, W-O-N. One that has one, entirety. Everything around. One that has one, everything around. Yesham samya sthitam mana is settled, is established with a mind which is totally immersed in equanimity. This particular line raises two questions. One corresponds to the first line. Of course, the second one is for the second line. Let me take the first question. The first question that comes to my mind is, what is victory? When we say I have won, what is winning? What is victory? Because here it says one that has one entirety is the one that is settled, but that is born with a settled mind, a mind totally immersed in equanimity. This is something which probably will take a while for us to understand and comprehend, for a reason, because the moment we say that one that has one entirety around. Now, what is victory? Generally, what we understand about victory is, we give ourselves an objective, then we further to realize or cherish that objective, we confront various obstacles, challenges, conflicts, we overcome them, and we achieve what we had settled for us. Whatever we settle as an objective before us, when we achieve that objective could be, in the spiritual parlance, any worldly affair or a professional pursuit. It could be any. When you cherish it, when you achieve it, we say it is victory. Whereas here, it slightly differs from that understanding. Here the objective has not been given, but here an understanding about a state, an inner state has been mentioned. And that has been declared as a victory over entirety around one. And that state has been mentioned as a mind immersed in equanimity, a settled mind. Or rather, I would say settled in equanimity. This is something we have to understand, because when I started, I said this particular verse emanates direct light to all those people who are under their professional pursuits. In a professional pursuit, how can you claim that you have won, W-O-N, won, or you are victorious about the entirety around you? How can you claim that victory? How can you make yourself understand that you have already won? For this, we have to also understand one aspect, which again comes from the corridors of the ancient Indian wisdom. Whenever we undergo a ritualistic practice under ancient Indian wisdom, we have certain rituals to be performed, in which one of the most important ritual is, before starting anything, we also apply a tilak over here. We call it tilak, something that we apply on the forehead. It's generally with a sandalwood, a paste of the sandalwood. Either it could be in red color or that whitish kind of a color, silvery color, and we call it as tilak. An impression that we put upon our forehead, that is called as tilak. Once we apply that tilak, while we apply that, under the ritual, we chant a specific mantra. That mantra in Sanskrit goes, Om Chandanasya Mahatpunyam Pavitram Papanashanam Apadam Harte Nityam Lakshmi Stishtati Sarvada. This particular mantra, I'm not deviating, I'm not deflecting from the subject, I'm coming to that because we have to understand how is it possible that one whose mind is immersed or settled in equanimity is the one that is victorious of the entirety around, especially in the professional pursuit. When we apply this tilak upon our forehead, this mantra speaks out. It gives a great message. It says that you are applying the paste of this sandalwood, chandan. The sandalwood is termed as chandan in Hindi or Sanskrit. It says that when we apply chandan over here, now here the mantra says when we apply the paste of sandalwood on our forehead, it has two meanings into that. One meaning is that when we apply it externally at the end of a matter, we make a paste, we put an impression over here. Another is the inference that we have to draw from this metaphor. Although the chandan, the sandalwood, is understood to bear properties that give a calm inside. The fragrance of a sandalwood, as we generally burn the incense sticks of sandalwood at our place of worship, the altar, its fragrance gives you a lot of calm, equanimity, tranquility. You feel settled. It's soothing. It does not aggravate you. That is the material property of it. But there is another aspect which we have to draw an inference from this metaphor, which means that when your mind inside is settled, when your mind inside is in state of equanimity, tranquil, with a tranquil state of mind, your decision making ability, it enhances to levels where the ability to handle and manage crisis becomes superb. With a settled state of mind, any conflict affront you that you confront, you would be able to give a response which is most befitting, most appropriate one. You would not be in a state of a disturbed insight, not able to exercise all the faculties of your brain, not able to distinguish between different facts. Nothing is going to run oversight. Everything is going to come into your purview. You shall be taking all important considerants into your consideration before concluding towards any final response, any final outcome of your understanding, any decision that we call it. You would take everything into account, factor it, and then base your decisions upon that. And a settled mind in equanimity, rested or vested with equanimity, when it would discern, distinguish, and conclude upon a subject, shall manage any crisis or conflict before it most appropriately, irrespective of the magnitude of that conflict, irrespective of the final outcome. Because ultimately, what matters most while handling the crisis or any kind of an event which is unpleasant or comes as a challenge to you, the most important thing is that the total outcome in entirety has to be such where no remorse is factored in. You come out of it, even if you come out of it with some penalty, some damage, yet the holistic understanding drawn or experience drawn or conclusion drawn should be such which benefits you. So thereby, the mantra says that like we apply chandan as sandalwood on our forehead, we should bestow our seat of understanding, a settled insight, totally immersed in equanimity, so that our decision making process has to be such where all outcome should factor all considerants that have to be incorporated before making a final decision. And such a person or such an insight that would always factor in the entirety around and then conclude shall always find that affluence or abundance is around them at all times in their life. Now, this is something which probably appears to be an extra stretched statement, for reason being because we were only confined to one part of the verse which said that if you have a settled insight, your decision making process shall do justice or justifiably conclude to the outcome which is in benefit holistically or in a larger spectrum. But the second part of the line says that not only that you shall be able to justifiably handle, manage and conclude upon any kind of a crisis or conflict, but at the same time you also ensure that affluence or abundance surrounds you at all times. Lakshmi Shishtati Sarvada. Now here affluence or abundance has to be viewed from its depths. Generally, what we merely confine our understanding to comprehend about abundance refrains or abstains us to factor in what actually abundance or affluence means. It is not completely confined to the material aspects. Affluence or abundance is an emotion, is an experience that you give yourself. People with lot of material abundance, lot of material affluence have been observed living in total dissatisfaction. They're always in some or the other kind of conflict that they cannot gratify even the basic senses that they have. They always remain discontented. Discontentment does not ensure that you are under some deprivation. Discontentment certainly ensures that you are not able to attune within yourself to such a frequency where contentment can manifest. You may be sitting in a pile of gold, yet remain discontented, yet remain confused, yet remain dissented, yet remain absolutely in an unsettled state of mind. So, materially, if you want to conclude the limits of abundance, so then it will be injustice. We have to understand that abundance or affluence has a larger meaning to understand, and which is in whatever state you are, at whatever point of time in your life, you are in a blissful inner state of joy. With all that you have, you're able to cherish, you're able to pursue whatever you aspire towards. Whether your means are scarce or your means are inappropriate, does not matter. Yet the journey keeps moving. If that happens, that even with meager resources, if your journey furthers towards your objective, you are in a state of abundance and affluence. And even if despite of all material resources and amenities at your disposal, yet you are not able to accomplish, yet even if you are in a state of discontentment, then abundance or affluence carry no meaning, which automatically means that whenever you draw inference from the word of affluence, WRD, word of affluence and abundance, don't confine it to the material aspects. Ultimately, abundance and affluence is an understanding, an experience, an observation which has to transpire within you. There could be people who may be absolutely devoid of material resources, yet in state of high enchantment, experiencing such blissful vibes inside that they feel in total abundance and affluence. The verse says, one that is immersed in equanimity has one, one, entirety in its surround. Such an insight which is settled. Such an insight which does not ride the tidal waves. One moment you're at the top, another moment the tidal wave shall throw you and thwart you at the bottoms. One whose mind rides upon the tidal waves, the upsurge or the downward movements, is not a settled mind. You're exuberant at one moment of time and you're depressed and dampened on the other. If you bear such a state of mind which experiences exuberance and the dampness within the same hour, within the same day, it clearly means that you are not in a settled, you are surviving on the ripple effect of the circumstantial movements of your life. You are on the ups and you're on the downs. You are experiencing what we generally termed as mood swings. This word mood swing has got a deeper meaning also. It could also be taken and understood as one's understanding or response to different situations in life, different people in life, different subjects in life. And people who are vulnerable to the mood swings, either on a superficial level or at the deeper level, are not the people who are with a settled insight, born with equanimity. Such people cannot be expected to enjoy the essence, the nectar of abundance or affluence. Because abundance or affluence is a state of experience, inner experience, where materials may or may not count much into the role. This is something which has to be understood. Because I started with an understanding that goes for the professional pursuit. How could you say that you have won the entirety within your own professional circles, within your own professional channels, with a state of equanimity inside? Because you as a professional have a mandate to decide, discern, distinguish, factor, and then conclude day in, day out. There is a large expectancy of meaningful decisions from you. And meaningful decisions are an outcome of a state of a mind. Your thumb doesn't do that. Your index finger won't do that. Your knee won't do that. Your foot won't do that. That abstract you in you, the one which is a non-local reality, cannot be tangibly produced outside, that we term as consciousness, awareness. That portion of you, that identity of you, that entity of you ultimately has to exercise its own properties and establish that whether you are in abundance or not. People who are vulnerable and prone to these swings, who are not settled, who are not in samabhava, not in equanimity, for them even a small gesture which has been passed on, a small stricture passed on by someone, just a small look which they don't consider as appropriate or apt in accordance with their own social status, with their own designation, might create a lot of riot inside. How dare he look at me like that? How dare she say that word about me? How dare these things happen like this towards me? Interpersonal relationship conflicts and other conflicts that human people accrue and accumulate on a momentary basis daily. They create a pile of it, which ultimately leads them to a lot of conflict and remorse. Is an outcome of what? When you subject your inner equanimity to this swing or the tidal movement, both are the same. The swing of a pendulum is same towards right or towards left, and the tidal wave, they both symbolically represent the same state of inside. And Gita has mentioned it during those unknown times. The great masters have professed it, that if you bear an insight that is vulnerable to swings, you shall certainly be the most deprived one, the pauper. You shall certainly confront a lot of inability, lot of depreciation. You shall deplete your creative energies towards these swings, because every swing, every tidal upsurge or a downward movement depletes your creative energy, depletes your life energy. It eats out of you, and then only it shall accomplish its own pursuit. And one who has immunized instead of it, who's created an immunity jacket at the state of mind to remain unperturbed, to remain in settled state, in inner equipoise. Let me utilize a word, equipoise. It's a better word to say a settled equanimity, a mind in state of equanimity. It's inner inner, I must add another word, inner equipoise. If you can experience an inner equipoise within yourself, irrespective of the conflicting dichotomy ridden subjects and issues that come to your table before your notices, for you to intervene and exercise your role, you shall not be perturbed, disturbed. Rather, you shall do justice with them. You shall be able to manage them, come out of it unscathed, and even if there is a scratch, that will be to the minimalistic extent of it, shall not hamper the larger growth which lies further. Under this particular verse, it says, because one who stays in the state of inner equipoise or in equanimity shall benefit of this inner affluence, inner abundance, for a reason, because the cosmic mind is devoid of any kind of contamination. There is no contamination into the cosmic mind. Cosmic mind, cosmic intelligence, unified field, as the quantum physicists claim, whatever you may call it, we call it as Brahma. We call it as Brahma. It doesn't matter. You deploy any kind of a term to indicate towards that infinity from everything that manifests, that unmanifest dimension of infinity. Let me say it as unmanifest dimension of infinity. That unmanifest dimension of infinity is the cosmic mind. All creative intelligence, innovativeness, all explorations, everything comes from that storehouse which is the unseen one. And today, with the modern science that has transcended into the subtle aspects, we are working with technology, whether it's nano level, atomic level, wherever it may be, or DNA. We are working with an unseen world. Right now, our exploration of the material science has gradually transcended to the unseen dimension, where even the scientists are not able to decipher the form where it is happening. But since it is happening, certain phenomena that were observed has been taken as a principle, and the technology is working upon them. There is none who can claim that he has been able to sight a nanometer, a millionth of a millimeter. Nobody has sighted. In the world, we don't have any kind of a telescope or a microscope so far which can factor the exact form of a nanometer. We take it as a belief because a phenomena has been observed empirically, and we are given the entire technology for that. And we are moving ahead. We are moving ahead. We are programming that scale even. The unseen dimension, we are playing and conniving to levels where we are even programming it. That cosmic mind which is uncontaminated, the reservoir and the resource of the unmanifest dimension of infinity, the moment you settle your mind, you settle your insight in an inner equipoise, in a settled equanimity of your mind, you are able to access that creative infinite resource of intelligence. And the moment you are able to connect, generally there is a disconnect between ordinary minds like ours and that infinite resource of intelligence. Because we keep playing within our own limited cocoons of our brains, the word has not come out, the phrase has not come out for no reason. Thinking out of the box. Think out of the box. What does it mean? In other words, it means that come out of your confinement and try to connect with that infinite resource of creative intelligence. Because generally when you remain confined, because when you're biased, when you act as a barrier with an unsettled state of mind, you're in the turbulence at all times with all situations, people, or subjects. That turbulence does not allow you, it disallows you. It disallows you to come out of your limited box. This is the box. And touch the hemispheres of the cosmic mind. To be able to relinquish this limited box and transcend the hemispheres of the cosmic mind, one has to be a state of equanimity. In a turbulent state, an aircraft shall never be able to relinquish itself from the runway. It has to move with a thrust and a drag, a tremendous thrust and a drag in a settled motion so that it alleviates the gravitational pulls and touches the hemisphere of the skies. To degravitate, it has to move in an inner equanimity. It cannot say that let me move right or left or right or left or up and down, up and down. It would never be able to challenge and defy the gravitational pulse. The ability to the aircraft comes only when it moves with an inner equipoise to run at a pace and then relinquish itself from the gravitational pulse. And the same goes with the human mind as well. To be able to touch the cosmic mind, the creative resource of intelligence which is infinite, from where our decisions could become more appropriate, more judicious, more encompassing to the situation's affront, shall only come when we are able to touch this. And this shall never happen unless we are able to have this inner equipoise. The great masters have given us the formula. This formula, certainly by merely listening to one lecture, shall not become an intrinsic part of your nature or my nature. These are beacons. One must remember, these are beacons. They are the guiding light. And the role of the beacon is to guide you from a distance even. We all understand that merely by reading this verse, by understanding the interpretation of it, it shall not become a part of our life. Day-to-day dispensation has to undergo all these arduous, turbulent movements. But one thing is for sure, whenever we are in a state of turbulence, whenever we are in such states where ups and downs and swings are moving on, during those moments, if you are able to recall even an infinitesimal portion of this kind of a deliberation, we can restore ourselves to some state of normalcy, some inner settlement, some inner equipoise, where we can distance ourselves from engrossment into the ongoing affairs and take a better satellite or a macro view of the ongoings. To be able to gather the ability to have a macro sighting of the ongoings, it just needs to distance from the engrossment level to a distance level, and the taking a leap backwards, not forward. Forward would be engrossment, taking a backward would be to relinquish and take a macro view of that. These understandings act as a role of beacons to you, to us, during these moments of our entire engrossments, when we are under turbulations. They can come as a guiding light, and we can just decipher and make ourselves remind, oh yes, this moment, if I have to do justice with the ongoing situation, if I have to cope and combat this challenge ahead, this crisis has to be managed most judiciously, I must wait, hold, distance a bit, think with all inner equipoise, so that my inner equipoise is able to factor in all mandatory aspects that otherwise, because of my engrossment or aggression, may not elude and evade consideration to those important things. This is something you have to understand. And this is a great learning for all those people who want to cherish their professional pursuits, to retain this understanding and interpretation at the back of their mind, to recall it at any opportune moment whenever they are confronting, hand to hand, engrossed to manage any kind of a crisis in their professional lives. Because when you have challenges ahead, when you have crises ahead, those are the moments when you have to really prove your worth. The worth of a human being is not generally proved when during normal times. Normal times are routines. You're beating a routine. It's only when the challenge ahead or something which is bigger, when you have to accomplish it, then only the real metal of you is under the test of the time. We'll meet in the next lecture. We conduct this live classroom every second and last Sunday of the month. Every second and last. Certain month I've got 5 Sunday. The Hindi starts at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. English starts at 9:30 a.m. See you in the next classroom on the next verse of the same chapter number 5. Till then, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.